Chinese EV companies have been locked in a death race for years. Now, they're headed for a massacre. And not even the kind of massacre the CCP likes. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Matt Ganejda, filling in today for Chris Chappell, whose Mario Kart lost control on Rainbow Road, and we're waiting for him to rematerialize. Now, before I tell you how crazy China's car industry has become, let me tell you about how crazy YouTube has become. Since at least November, this channel has been facing major suppression. Our own survey showed that YouTube has secretly unsubscribed more than 1 in 4 of you. YouTube has quietly deleted many of your comments and refused to notify you when we publish new episodes. But there's a way you can stand up and fight. Sign up to get our free weekly newsletter in your inbox. The newsletter has links to all the episodes we published that week, plus lots more that you can't get here on YouTube. The more people that sign up, the more we can keep up the fight, no matter what YouTube throws at us. So click below. What are you waiting for? So, are you looking to buy an electric car, but you're not too keen on Tesla because, then maybe you should do like the UK's King Charles and buy an EV from China. Because when you don't want to financially support someone whose morals and politics you don't agree with, then the natural solution is to go with China. According to my favorite Chinese state-run newspaper, the Global Times, many saw King Charles' choice as an indirect endorsement of China's development model. Which surely shows you how great the Chinese EV industry is doing these days. If you ask the Chinese press, everyone abroad wants a piece of the Chinese EV industry. From Indonesians to Africans. At the same time, the industry is clearly thriving at home and globally. That's what Chinese state-run media would have you believe. But recently, there's been an avalanche of signs that China's EV industry is driving towards a catastrophe. And it looks a bit like this, metaphorically. One of these signs came from China's leading EV company, BYD. Back in May, BYD announced a fresh round of price cuts on its models by as much as 34%. BYD's cheapest battery-powered hatchback went from $10,000 to less than $7,800. That's an insane price drop from an already very low starting point. I've seen bidets more expensive than that. BYD's announcement sent Chinese car stocks plummeting, with the shares of some companies falling nearly 10%. Around the same time, Wei Jianjun, the CEO of Chinese automaker Great Wall Motor, warned in a hard-hitting interview that China's auto sector is in an unhealthy state. He even compared the Chinese auto industry to China's crisis-hit property sector, saying that now Evergrande in the automobile industry already exists, but it has not collapsed. Does this mean, besides ghost cities, we're also going to get ghost cars? Evergrande was once China's biggest property developer, but it collapsed under the weight of its own massive debt in 2021. It threatened to drag the entire Chinese property market down with it. Suggesting that the auto industry has a similar thing coming? That's not exactly a chipper outlook. Ironic that the electric vehicle industry is running on fumes. But Wei's biggest bombshell turned out to be what he termed second-hand cars with zero mileage. He was referring to a strange surge of undriven vehicles on China's second-hand market. Sounds like a contradiction because how can a car be second-hand if it hasn't been driven by anyone? Did someone carry it into a garage and then not touch it, like a vintage toy left in its package? Yeah, kind of. It's part of a scheme where automakers and car dealers take their oversupply of unsold cars, offload them further down the food chain, and then register the cars as sold. Yep, sales numbers are up again. If that sounds sketchy to you, relax. Because you're right. The scheme can give the impression that tons of cars are being sold, when the only thing that's happening is that the unsold cars are being handed over to players in the second-hand market. It's another indication that the Chinese EV sector is very much out of balance. Now, ordinarily, we should take the claims of a Chinese auto tycoon like Wei regarding the industry and its players with a grain of salt, plus a mountain of salt on the side. Leading figures in the sector often lash out at each other. BYD was quick to dismiss Wei's remarks on the industry's health as alarmist. But this time around, Wei was pointing to things that were so unnerving and caused such a stir that China's Commerce Ministry called a meeting a few days later, which wasn't a good sign. The CCP never calls meetings to say, "Great job, you're making us proud." Trade groups and automakers, including BYD, were asked to attend. They reportedly discussed the zero-mileage used car sales and several other issues that are hurting the industry. As the meeting got closer, the situation got worse. The same day the meeting was called, shares in Chinese automakers fell again. That same week, a big BYD car dealer in eastern China went out of business, shutting down at least 20 stores and leaving more than 1,000 customers in limbo. And soon after that, Chinese car dealers came out urging automakers to stop dumping inventory on them, which would be like McDonald's telling farmers, "Stop giving us so many beef patties and potatoes." That'd be a clear sign that McDonald's business is unhealthy. So things are not looking as dandy for Chinese EV business as King Charles' purchase might suggest. But how did it get to a point where it looks like Chinese car companies are manipulating sales and an industry leader is warning of an Evergrande-type collapse? Well, as with so many other issues in China, we need to start with the great, glorious, and correct Communist Party. Not long after Chinese leader Xi Jinping came to power in 2012, the CCP started openly talking about making China a technology and manufacturing leader in a long list of modern industries. Near the top of that list was the field of new energy vehicles, such as hybrids and EVs. To develop this new field, both the central government and local governments began releasing a flood of subsidies and incentives to encourage everyone far and wide to jump in. And everyone did. Even Chinese companies with little or no experience in car making rushed in to get a slice of the subsidized pie. These included smartphone maker Xiaomi, search engine giant Baidu, and even property developer Evergrande. It's been estimated that by 2023, the government had spent at least $230 billion to build the EV industry. That's a spectacular amount of money, and surely just as wise of an investment as a quality bidet or a vintage toy still in its packaging. In some ways, the effort did pay off. China is now home to the world's largest battery maker, CATL, and the world's now largest EV maker, BYD. But at the same time, there are a total of 168 other automakers operating in China today, and most of them have a market share of less than 0.1%. No other country comes close to having so many automakers. And there's a reason for this. It's because it's unsustainable, even for a market of China's size. This kind of thing only happens in very distorted markets, like when people start companies to get government subsidies rather than to actually serve customers. So, to solve the overproduction problem created by massive Chinese government subsidies, the Chinese government had another brilliant idea. Ship tons of EVs overseas and sell them in foreign markets at low prices. You don't see them in the US because of the massive tariffs Biden put in place to stop them. But Chinese EVs are all over Europe and the UK, which I'm not sure if that's still Europe. In 2023, China became the world's largest exporter of cars. But fast forward to 2025, and China's EV exports have been stalling. And there's a reason for that. Global backlash. The managing director at auto consultancy JSC Automotive said the US market is completely closed and Japan and Korea may close very soon if they see an invasion of Chinese car makers. He added that Russia, which was the biggest export market last year, is now becoming very difficult. I also don't see Southeast Asia as an opportunity anymore. Wow, I'm shocked that pushing out a crappy product that no one likes is lowering demand. If only there were a basic economics class that could have warned them about this. So, with Chinese car makers facing more difficulties abroad, many will have to find a place in the Chinese domestic market if they want to survive. But there isn't room for all of them. The Chinese government has already said that China has too many electric vehicle companies. There are more Chinese EV companies than there are NCIS spin-offs. This leaves China's 169 automakers with an existential question. Who will go belly up, and who will claw their way to the top? This has sent the Chinese EV industry into a death spiral so brutal, it's been described as a war. It's in this war that companies like BYD viciously slash prices to try to squeeze out the competition, and it's in this war that many appear to be distorting car sales in the hopes that encouraging numbers will inspire confidence among investors and cause despair among competitors. Meaning this war has found a way to somehow make China and car salesmen less trustworthy. That's actually downright impressive. China's own state planner cautioned that things were getting too heated. Companies are selling their cars below production costs and adding extra features and upgrades for free. In this environment, it's not surprising that EV makers don't have anything resembling profits. That'd be like going to a job interview, and when it comes time to negotiate salary, you say, "I'll pay you to work here," then wondering why you're hungry all the time. Xpeng reported losses in the first quarter of this year amounting to $90 million. And NIO reported losses of nearly $1 billion. China's golden child, BYD, reportedly carries a debt burden of about $45 billion. But according to industry insiders, what we are seeing now is just an appetizer of what's yet to come. A BYD executive said in early January that the new year will be a final knockout round. And the managing director of a car advisory firm told Reuters that the development in recent weeks points to a bloodbath coming later this year. On the bright side, it's nice to hear a story happening in China use the term bloodbath, and it doesn't involve killing dissidents. You see, the EV price war is getting so intense that experts are estimating that any EV maker that sells under 2 million vehicles a year will not survive. That's about the same as the total number of cars Mercedes-Benz sold last year. So it's not just tiny EV startups that are going to be left in the dust in the EV death race. Even large EV manufacturers are likely to get knocked off the track. This means that thousands of subsidized jobs and massive amounts of public funding risk being lost in the near future as automakers start going under one by one. But fortunately, the Chinese economy is doing great and there are plenty of well-paying jobs available for everyone, right? Right? It could take a particularly heavy toll on the Chinese provinces where local governments are already in deep debt, and they've bet big on their region emerging with a robust EV industry. Which is like telling your kids, "You're going to get to go to college if I win big on this slot machine, fingers crossed." For some of China's most indebted regions, the coming EV slaughter might be what pushes them over the financial and economic edge. At the same time, it's not just tons of investments and jobs that are at stake. People's lives are on the line too. In his viral interview, Wei, the CEO of Great Wall Motor, spoke about how the price war has resulted in some EV models having their prices slashed from 220,000 yuan to 120,000 yuan, adding, "What kind of industrial products can be reduced by 100,000 yuan and still have quality assurance?" So something that's made in China is now even more dangerous and unreliable? Again, downright impressive. And Wei is not the only one that has brought this up. There has been growing concern that the EV fight is pushing companies to cut corners to be as cheap as possible. One American high school student I know told me he had recently visited China as part of a group. They gave the students a tour of a Chinese EV plant, and he was surprised that these cars did not have airbags. The EV safety issue grabbed nationwide attention a few months ago when a driver in a new car produced by Xiaomi, the smartphone maker, lost control of the car after having used its autopilot software. The vehicle hit a cement pole and caught fire, killing 3 university students. So at this point, it's a matter of how much China's EV war is going to cost in terms of money, jobs, and lives before it's over. But on the bright side, King Charles bought one, and who's more in touch than a 76-year-old that lives in a palace? If by the time the Chinese EV sector stabilizes, the industry's reputation has become shattered by stories of vicious infighting, the dumping of discount cars, and major safety problems, then the war could end without any real winners. Like most wars. Few people will want to buy a car from the companies that are left. Perhaps even the royals will opt for a different vehicle, even if it's just a few horsepower. And if you don't believe me, just ask this auto tycoon what a bad reputation can do to your EV company, and that's when the quality is great. And before you go, remember to sign up for our free weekly newsletter. It's lots of fun. Just wait till you read it. The link is below. Once again, I'm Matt Gnezda. Thank you for watching China Uncensored.